Okay, take two of my return to YouTube. So it's going to be anti-natalism again. I got a couple comments on my YouTube site about the last video I made, and one of them was, not so positive. They claimed that anti-natalism was a rot of the intellectual mind, and that people shouldn't have to hear it. Well, the thing is, on YouTube, you can block channels. You can choose not to watch certain videos. I mean, before you even watch a video, you can see the title, and my title was anti-natalism. So, I would imagine if you saw a video like that and you don't want to rot your intellectual mind, you would just click away from it. And maybe that user didn't even watch the video, so that's even better, right? That's a boss move. So yeah, good for her or him or whoever she was or he was. um, Great, great. So more antinatalism. So sometimes during the discussion of antinatalism, people, antinatalists will bring up examples or analogies of of what they're talking about with regards to suffering. So they'll use sometimes extreme or exaggerated examples, because sometimes regular examples or examples pulled from everyday experience don't quite drive the point home. So you end up with some people thinking that, well, you're just talking about an extreme example of suffering, but life isn't that extreme. So, life is tolerable. So you're kind of wrong because, say you bring up an example of severe mental illness, for instance. Not everybody's severely mentally ill, so I don't know what you're talking about. I'm mentally healthy, and yeah, there's antinatalism doesn't apply to me. But it's not that. It's just that if you bring up an example that includes severe mental illness, um, what you're doing is you're just trying to the antinatalist is trying to give you something that kind of like hooks you in, that makes you understand that life is suffering, and maybe an extreme example just highlights it. So I'll give you a couple examples today. And this is the first time I'm using video editing for these YouTube videos, so I'll see how it goes. So while I'm reading the description of this photo in editing, and after I make this video in editing, I'll put the photo up while I'm reading the description, so you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's a photo of two parents who are amputees. One of them lost their limbs in an accident, and one of them is a congenital amputee. But they had a daughter, and there was a photography site. I think it's called But Natural Photography, and they did a photo of them sitting on their beds, with their daughter, and yeah, so it's a quite striking photo. It's well produced. It's well lit. It's nice color, etc., etc. So it's very evocative. Um, but this is what they said about the photo, and I'll put the photo up after this video, so you'll see it as I'm reading this. So here goes. So the guy in the photo says, "I have wondered what it would be like to have more than one child. I won't have enough arms to hold them," James said as he laughed casually. 9-year-old James lost his, not, sorry, 9 years ago, James lost his arm and leg in an accident. Ashley, a congenital amputee, which means that she was born with the lower part of her right arm missing. I don't know, it kind of cuts off there, but I didn't. She said, "I didn't want to have children because I thought I wouldn't be able to hold her. How will I support her head while feeding? How will I tie her shoelaces or change her clothes?" But it all worked itself out. Elara realizes that mommy and daddy have to do things differently, so she works with us on solutions. You know how it is with being limb different. You have to be persistent. Ashley is a successful model and advocate for families that have limb different member, which includes sharing helpful tips through her social media platforms. She is accident she Since his accident, James has worked with Japanese gaming giant Konami to personally design and develop his own advanced bionic arm, earning himself the nickname Metal Gear Man. Since then, he's become a speaker, BBC presenter, and model. They have the most beautiful 2-year-old daughter, Alara, who truly is a ray of sunshine. And this part of it is interesting. So the photographer, I guess, goes on to quote James, and she adds this little ditty. And this is really interesting, actually. So pay attention to what he says. This image is part of my series, Changing the Conversation. When I spoke with Ashley and James, they said that one way in which they want the conversation to change is for people to stop looking at them as inspiration. Normal people with exclamation marks. That is what all of us are. Not special, not inspirational, just normal people. That is how we will grow humanity, by stopping ourselves from putting others on a pedestal just for being themselves. So that little part was just really interesting, because it's funny how that fits into how anti-natalists try to use these extreme examples to cajole or bring out the kind of more everyday experience of suffering. And it's funny that these people who have had their limbs taken off, etc., etc., just want to be seen as normal. So I found that pretty interesting. So there's another example. Like I keep using this example all the time. I got it from a Facebook user who was using the example of slavery to demonstrate what anti-natalism is. So he said, and I've mentioned this example in other videos before, but I just want to reiterate it because it ties into another piece of artwork that I picked up on the web. So the example goes, if you were birthing people and the people that were born were going into slavery, excuse me, so every person that was birthed, you would put them into slavery, you would consider that wrong. You obviously would. So I won't tell you the whole example, but like that's the premise. That's the premise of the example. You would consider that wrong, to put people into slavery. So the trick there is to understand that while life is suffering, it's not slavery, but you're essentially birthing people into suffering. It's not extreme suffering. It's not it's not chattel slavery or anything like that. But it's suffering, and you're birthing people into it. So you would consider it wrong. And there's lots you could say about that example, etc., etc. But it's interesting because I picked up this other artwork, and I'll put the picture up if I can. I think it's fair use, so I don't think it's a big problem. But the artist in this photo, his name is Kwame Akoto Bamfo, and he is Ghanaian. And he says of his artwork, he said that he named it, hopefully I'm pronouncing this right, but he said he named the artwork Nkiyenkim, meaning twisted. And it's from a Ghanaian proverb which says life is a twisted journey. So I found that interesting. I found that life is a twisted journey. That's kind of very a general statement. It's not referring to slavery specifically, but his artwork, and you'll see the picture, is of slavery. And I found it interesting the way it coincided with the example I just gave of birthing people into slavery, right? And you'll see the artwork itself, and the artwork itself is of people chained by the necks and the limbs, and all chained together so that it looks as if one person moves, the other one suffers, and vice versa, right? So I thought that was now, don't get me wrong, this artist is not talking about anti-natalism, but it's funny how the artwork just plays into an anti-natalist context. So a bit here and there on this video. I don't want to go on too much. Hopefully it makes sense, and hopefully it makes sense when I put the pictures in after I make this video, so you see exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, that's about all I want to say. Bye.